We're going to begin in Gaza, where the Palestinian Civil Defence team says evidence from mass graves in the grounds of Nasser Hospital in Khan Younis shows the Israeli army carried out summary executions. 392 bodies have been recovered in mass graves across Gaza, but they've not been able to identify 267 of them, and at least 20 people may have been buried alive at the medical complex. Children were also among the bodies recovered. The team is accusing Israel of committing crimes against humanity. Meanwhile, international pressure is mounting on Israel after the discovery of the mass graves. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says Washington wants answers. The White House says reports of mass graves in Gaza are deeply disturbing. The EU and the United Nations have already called for an independent investigation. Mass graves have been discovered in al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City, as well as Nasser Hospital in the south. Dr. Mohammed al-Mukhreh is head of the Monitoring and Documenting Unit at the Civil Defence Department in Gaza. He's joining us live from Rafah. We're going to be talking to him through a translator. Sir, thank you very much indeed for being with us. Can you tell us how you and your team gathered the evidence?
Peace be upon you. Good evening, everyone. During our work with the Civil Defense team, in order to recover the bodies in the medical complex of Al-Nasser, we have found mass graves within the medical complex, and one in the morgue, one in the north of the medical complex, and the civil defense team has worked in order to recover all the bodies. Most of them were decomposed bodies, and the occupation forces has changed the forms and also changed the shrouds and put them in plastic bags. We believe that those bags have accelerated the decomposition of those bodies. We have also noticed through our teams, we are trying also to document all the evidence that showed that many corpses or bodies have shown signs of torture, including handcuffing, and also some other parts, some other bodies has shown that they were shot and gunshot. Also, we have observed that there were corpses of bodies that were completely dismembered. We also found bodies of women, young people, elderly in the area of around the medical complex. We also have observed and found some bodies with no clothes, and all this indicated that some other bodies showed that they were being treated in the medical complex, as we have shown in the picture during the press conference that showed that one of the bodies that found was receiving treatment. We are trying to find all the evidence, establish all the evidence how those bodies have been buried. We have also noted and observed that many bodies have been put in one bag, which is in violation of the regulations we have here. There is also clear indication that some citizens and some bodies have been buried in certain directions. We have also found some bodies in massed and compiled, put 30 meters underground, while in mass graves the distance should not be more than 1 meter.
So can you tell me what efforts you and your team have made to record and preserve the evidence that you say that you found?
We have worked in very difficult conditions and very challenging. This is due to the fact that we are lacking all the needed equipment to deal with those bodies and to maintain them. We have used the equipment that we have in order to recover the bodies, and we have tried as much as possible not to open the bags in order to keep those bodies until they are moved to a clean area where we can clean them, and then we can open those bags and document all the evidence that shows that there were signs of torture and are in violation with the international law. After taking note of all those signs and evidence, we have also been able to identify all the problems shown by those bodies, and we have documented them in specialized reports. Some of the reports are likely to help the international committees that can be launched in the near future in order to investigate in those crimes committed by the occupation.
With the evidence that you have managed to pull together, what do you do with it now? How do you get it to an independent team to be able to analyze it?
We are ready and fully prepared in order to submit a full report documented with all the photos and evidence that we have found about those bodies. We can publish them and submit them in both Arabic and in English so that it can be a foundation for the work that can be conducted by international investigation committees. We are here ready in Gaza in order to help their work, in order to refrain or to push the occupation to refrain from the crimes being committed against the people in Gaza. During our work, we have found children in those mass graves. Why do we have to find children bodies in mass graves? This confirms that the number that we are documenting of children that have died, which is more than 14,000 children, including elderly and women.
Are you concerned, sir, that if an independent team is unable to get into Gaza to be able to examine the evidence for themselves, that the evidence might become corrupted, it might become damaged, and therefore may become unusable if a case is to be brought?
I don't think so, because we have made sure to document all the evidences that we have found so far. Those bodies have been identified, whether those bodies were unknown or not known, known or not known. And we are keeping all the evidence that we found in order to present it to the International Investigation Committee. We will exert all our efforts in order to maintain and preserve all the evidence. We will document it properly so that we can convey the message of the Palestinian people to the world.
I want to ask you about the impact that this has been having on you and members of your team, having to go through these mass graves and collect the evidence that you say you have been able to pull together. What kind of effect is that having on the morale and on the personalities of people?
There is an impact, a mental impact, and also health that is impacting our health and our morale, given that we are exposed directly to those tortures. Some of our some members of our team have received the distress calls directly, but we were not able to reach the medical complex on time because of the situation back then. We were not able to save lives. Also, some of our teams or our members are still suffering from traumas that is also impacting the quality of the work that we can carry out. As far as their health of our teams is concerned, some of our members were contaminated, given that they were dealing directly with those bodies without having the proper precautions due to the lack of equipment. We have also lost all the specialized labs as far as forensic medicine is concerned in Gaza because of the occupation bombings and attacks, which has also hindered our work, and we were not able to establish all the needed evidence as we hoped. So we still believe that the occupation has stolen some organs. We have found some bodies with an open stomach, and they were just a staple stapled, which is also not known as a practice in forensic medicine or any kind of medicine in the health system in Gaza. We use usually the proper medical equipment and not staple the bodies.
Final question, sir. What would you hope that international organizations who look at your evidence would do with it now?
We hope to establish the clear evidence that the occupation has committed crimes and killed on purpose thousands of Palestinians in Gaza. They have used all kinds of tortures and violated all the privacy of our people and their dignity. The occupation has committed crimes and has killed all forms of life in Gaza. They took pleasure in doing so and destroying life in Gaza. We hope that there will be a clear report that will emanate from the investigation to prove and establish an evidence of all the occupation crimes being committed in Gaza.
Dr. Mohammed Al-Mokhtar, we appreciate you being with us on Al Jazeera. Thank you very much indeed. I'm going to bring in Jeffrey Robertson. He's an international lawyer and former United Nations war crimes judge. He was also president of the War Crimes Court in Sierra Leone. He's joining us live now from London. Good to have you with us on Al Jazeera, sir. This is one of the fundamental problems that Dr. Al-Mokhtar was pointing out, isn't it? The difficulty of collecting evidence, tangible evidence, inside a war zone.
Well, it's been a long history. We now have many forensic doctors who have had the rather grisly task of combing through mass graves and examining victims to establish how they died. And that is what is now essential to get to the bottom of this true atrocity. It's a crime against humanity. And there must be an independent inquiry, although Israel does not accept independence. When 7 aid workers were killed by drones the other day, they simply sacked the 2 officials responsible and said it was a tragedy. It wasn't a tragedy, it was a crime of manslaughter by negligence. But of course, the Israeli government would not allow any prosecution or any independent inquiry. This case cries out for an independent inquiry, and the sooner the better. The Gaza Health Authority is party obviously, and its job.
Jeffrey Robertson, unfortunately, your line there is breaking up, and I apologize for interrupting you, but I hope you can still hear me. I do want to ask about one of the points that Dr. Al-Mokhtar was making in terms of how they present the evidence to the rest of the world to be investigated. That he was suggesting that they would make the evidence available in Arabic and in English. One would imagine that the bulk of that may well be online until such times as a team can get to see it in person. In terms of bringing a prosecution or making in terms of the validity of that evidence, would it be enough just to be able to present that evidence online, or is it absolutely essential that investigators get to see that evidence in person?
It would not be enough, because people would say that the Hamas Health Authority was party free. So you have to have, for the sake of the Israelis as well as the Palestinians, an independent inquiry. And the real question of getting a team of experienced forensic doctors and a prosecutor or judge with an international reputation into Gaza. I mean, the Karim Khan, the head of the International Criminal Court prosecution, was not allowed into Gaza. So I think this is the point at which America has to step up. It's got a number of eminent prosecutors and experts. I'm sure it can put a team together. And it will have to insist, because this has caused outrage in the international community. It will have to insist on a truly independent investigation, independent of both the Hamas authorities and the Israeli government. It will have to have the ability to question those Israeli officers in the vicinity to establish how this horror came about and who is responsible. That is only the questions being asked by the European Union, by governments around the world, can only be answered by an inquiry that is independent of both sides. But because this is a crime against humanity, it requires a full and independent and transparent investigation.
Jeffrey Robertson, international lawyer, former United Nations war crimes judge. Sir, we appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed.